First person to get him there thought he was dead and alerted the whole village. Fortunately, they found out that his heart was still thumping. Then the first task popped up. He was to be rushed to the hospital. They suggested a contribution of some money to transport the old man to the hospital. What about the hospital bill? One of them asked. Unable to get the answers, they looked at each other in a confused manner. It was evident that no one was ready for the task. Miraculously, Osewe joined them. It was a huge sigh of relief as the man owned a car and 2 pickups. So if he agreed to offer one of the vehicles for transport, then they would only remain with the hospital bill. The vehicles are there, but you have to give me fuel, he said. And when they asked him the amount he needed for the fuel, they realized that it was enough to hire 2 vehicles from outside. Osewe lamented that the prices of fuel was far too high. Bolo's wife Nyasembo was also present. She rarely talked on any occasion. She was the type of a person who does their work or just sits without talking and only answers the questions they are asked. Some years back, she was jabbed at the thigh by an aggressive bull, and since then, she had been walking with the help of a stick. All their children had died except one who had disappeared decades back and was never heard of. It was now the husband who cut the grass to support her, and she also made, now the woman, also made mats for sale. That morning, after seeing her husband and listening to the villagers' discussion, she offered to speak. My son Osewe, she started. It was common for the old to address the young as their sons or daughters. Please get me one of your vehicles. I don't have any money, but I will pay you as soon as possible. Some people owe me money, or I can give you 4 of my mats as compensation. What do you say about that, my son? Everyone was quiet. Osewe thought about it for some seconds and offered to take the mats. He knew that most people don't pay their debts after being helped. Therefore, he settled for the mats. The old man was rushed to the hospital. Nobody knew what the outcome would be, and most of them guessed that the old man was suffering from stroke or even a heart attack. It was at this point that the second task emerged. The hospital needed the money for diagnosis, but there was none. The villagers who had come to the hospital looked at each other confusingly, without talking. Then for a second time, it forced Nyasembo to talk. My people, why don't you contribute the little that you have so that my husband can be saved? Then one of them replied, my mother, I could have helped you, but my son was sent yesterday for school fees, and I don't even know where I will get the money. Ochung gave out his reason despite owning more than 20 heads of cattle. Then others gave out their reasons. And when Nyasembo finally realized that she was alone on that, she pleaded again. I have understood you, my people, but why don't you just contribute for me the needed amount, and when my husband is discharged, we shall sell our cow and refund the money. Nyasembo and the husband had a cow that they milked. That was the only valuable thing they owned, and most times they depended on its milk for survival. Any moment, the cow would no longer be theirs, should the villagers agree to contribute the needed amount. None of them welcomed the idea of selling the cow and giving them money later. Why wouldn't they be given the money immediately? So they advised this desperate woman to sell the cow immediately to any willing buyer. Agwenge, a renowned farmer around, offered to buy the cow. He gave Nyasembo the money and the cow officially became his. And Nyasembo's husband was treated. He was found to be suffering from malnutrition and ulcers. Then after the medication, the mzee regained consciousness. Make sure you give him balanced diet and make sure he doesn't miss any meal. The doctor advised them. Okay, they said, probably on the behalf of the speechless Nyasembo.
PD University of Science and Technology, one of the best reputable private-owned institutions of higher learning in the country. An institution that has produced the distinguished scholars and graduates who have served humanity in different designations and fields of profession. Have scholars has never been and will be a vocabulary associated with this university in any way. One always gets an airtime to post having studied in this great university. It's every scholar's dream to join and study here. In one of the halls of residence, a dimly lit room, curtains still hanging on the window, and lights switched off, a girl apparently upset zet. A mask, her face, a mask of wrinkles, obviously an avalanche of thoughts she ruminated upon hammering against her. She supported her chin with her palms, her elbows against the thighs. Her eyes red and swollen, a clear indication she has ceaselessly been crying. More often, she could pick her nose with her already wet handkerchief. She could hardly resist the tears which freely flew. For the past 4 hours, she has been in her cube. She has never known the peace of mind. Tling, 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 tling. 2 text messages are successfully delivered to her phone, which was on her bed. She picked it and read the text. You have an overdue or core debt of 325 shillings and 90 cents Kenya shillings, service fee of 35.50 that must be settled before. She could not read anymore. She deleted it and went to the next message. You will not be able to access or call Jahazi for the next 24 hours due to the late payment. Please top up to settle your account. These two she deleted and threw the phone to where she had picked it from. The Okoa debt in question had accumulated as a result of the several requests she had made to the service earlier in the week. She had done so with the aim of contacting the individuals she thought they would be of great help to her in as far as the current problem she confronted was concerned. Unfortunately, the help was nowhere in sight. All those individuals who answered her calls. Unfortunately, the help was nowhere in sight. All those individuals who had answered her calls had shown remorse for not being in a position to help. Some had promised to get back to her, which they never did. Others had given her a myriad of problems they confronted which needed immediate financial attention. The most capable individuals, the politicians and those closer to them, had either missed or ignored her calls. They never called back to acknowledge the missed calls. Neither did they reply the text messages. The text messages from the service provider, Safaricom, had poured her back her minds which had been eons away. It was at this point in time she realized she had been in her room more than 4 hours. She had not had her lunch. Appetite was the missing link. She could not have, however, afforded to eat if she wanted to. The only amount she had between her and poverty was 20 shilling coin she had earlier remained with after buying her breakfast, a glass of sweetened tea, and 2 slices of blue pan buttered bread, which has cost her 30 shillings. Between her and absolute poverty was that coin. She could not envisage for how long, and when will she come to some amount to keep her coin. Starvation was ferociously staring at her, ready to pounce any moment. That is, if appetite regains its rightful position. The entire university had been a hive of activity as students and the university staff ran helter-skelter. It was at that time of the academic calendar in the university where no one had time for a colleague. The time when students who were always accompanied by the earphones were missing in action, nowhere to be seen. That time in the university where the common late risers defied their usual timetable and went against all odds, intent on grasping some content which the comrades affectionately referred to as kutafuta content, which they would rather later pour to their exam booklet. They would wake up as early as 4 in the morning. Others had late nights and still had energy in their punks for waking up at the wee hours. It was during that time in the institution where spaces in the usual spacious Lion library was hard to come by. F is real was the slogan which was on everyone's lips during such a time. F was the appreciated form of a fail, which according to the university policy meant one would pay to redo the course. To avoid F, one had to revisit and dig deeper into their notes and assignments. Who unto those who hardly visited their notes, yet were taking the units of those lecturers who never hesitated to award you the grade you deserved, whether or not F. They never had favors. The story of lecturers sitting and awarding marks to the students without marking their work was not part of this university. It was claimed that one part-time lecturer had tried and was found out. He was blacklisted, went unpaid, and was told if he ever stopped in the compound. The semester was coming to an end, and hence exams were being administered beginning that day. This was the second semester she was consecutively missing her exam. A third-year student, Chip Kemoi, had hardly known what it meant to do exam on time. At the end of each semester with the rest of the students, she has been sitting for her specials exams, which the university decided to be giving to students who had missed to do on time because of various unavoidable circumstances. As she sat down thinking, she realized she has done more special exams than she could remember. Coming from a poverty-stricken background, Chepkemoi hardly paid her fees on time, which was a mandatory requirement for one to sit for the exams, yet she had not done so, hence her current situation. The university rule was, no student is authorized to sit for exams before clearing their fees. This phrase always accompanied the memos touching on exam whenever they were sent. As a self-sponsored student, Chip Kemoi has gone through a lot. She has never known the comfort of ever clearing fees on time. Being a third year last semester, she was expected to proceed for her teaching practice the following academic year, which would have been a long holiday. However, that might not be the case. She was yet to do any third year exam scheduled for that year. She had enrolled for the outgoing semester, hoping she would sail through and later do the specials exam of the previous semester. Her current problem was ruining it all. Sitting forlornly, her face withdrawn, Chepkemoi flashbacked her ups and downs on the academic journey. She joined this university 4 years ago, meaning she would have been gowned under constant conditions. She had hoped to graduate on time, and fortune smiling upon her immediately, she could save the worst situation back at home and make her dreams come true. That was not to be the case. She is yet to complete her studies, and she knew not if she would, leave alone not when. Up to this moment, she had deferred her studies 2 times and was on the verge of deferring it for a 3rd time. Between academic years, deferrals punctuated her studies. She had called her mother and absolutely helpless she was. Arasa goni na imano memo. Agingen kit neuga. What am I really to give you, Memo? Memo being the affectionate, shortened form of Chepkemoi. You know the situation back at home. With that, she had broken down in tears. Not that she had blamed her mother. She pitied her helpless self and cursed herself for calling her mother to reawaken the reminder of the fact that she is poor. She looked around herself at the poor thing that she had been reduced to. The beauty of a young girl swallowed in a now rapid forming contours on her forehead. She was a sight. Everything was moving like a whirlwind around her. Mary, Chepkemoi's mother, literally raised her family alone, a family of 7. The iron lady she was. Her husband, who was once a well-known mason, had been on his deathbed for the last 5 years. These years have been the hectic ones of her life. She has been trying to balance between taking care of her half-living husband and kids who demanded a lot. The 5 years which the man has been lying waiting for the appointed time with his creator had set this otherwise beautiful, promising family on the slopes of economic deprivation. Richard was a very ambitious man like any other growing individual. Though he had negligible schooling, he was among the few who were considered progressive in the society. Having inherited nothing from his arrogant father, he walked up the ladder of social status. His father, who clinged to the old obstinacy that men should work for their property, had made it clear to him that at whatsoever no circumstances would he, Richard, establish his family in that piece of land. One has to buy his that he will earn his living from. And the old man had remained faithful to his word. No son of his ever built his family in the land. Nothing comes free. You should learn to provide for yourself. He usually told them, and so they did. From leasing of farms, Richard was in a position to raise some money, which he purchased his piece of land. He was the man who knew how to range some fortune from the soil. He was one of those lucky farmers who hardly failed to witness a pamba harvest. He added this to his work as a mason, which made something good that one could be proud of. Being the firstborn to his parents, he obviously showed his siblings how to fend for themselves. The village respected him. His hard work and sheer determination earned him the name Kipiator, which meant the pathfinder. His family fortunes and his role as the breadwinner was harshly halted when one day, while working on a 3-story building, he aimed at bringing to completion his building sooner, as he had other 3 projects lined up which his services had been sought. He was a fine gentleman who neither betrayed his benefactors nor left traces of doubt or satisfaction in whatever he laid his hands on. He never gave you some room to have got misgivings in his work. This story building cruelly changed the plot of his life and that of the entire family. He had slipped at the peak of the building and he unwillingly landed on the concrete floor with a thud, breaking his spinal cord in the event. Pundi, as he was famously known, the corrupted version of Swahili Fundi, the technician, was rushed to the nearby hospital where his life was stabilized and immediately transferred to one bigger with modern sophisticated machines. He was diagnosed with the same. The hospital, however, wasn't in a position to rectify the spinal cord, save for the fractured ribs. He needed to be lifted to India for proper treatment, which was an impossibility as it required billions of money. However, his life, which was at stake, needed to be sustained daily through daily monitored medication, which needed a very powerful financial muscle to keep him going. This unfortunate happenstance disrupted every set-up in the household. The family fortune started dwindling drastically. Always expenses and nothing tangible coming in. They organized fundraiser after fundraiser, which its collection too kept on dwindling. His children in best expensive private boarding primary school were forced to forego their places and join the ever-crowded public ones. His house under construction, which was half completed, was left hanging like a caricature. Richard, always on bed, was being assisted to answer the call of nature. Very cruel. Chepkemoi, his firstborn, once found him shedding tears. She could not bear the sight of his tears, so she instantly left for her room, and there she cried her heart out. Why? Why?
Will you not transcend us in becoming a better professor than we are? And I think to the extent that there is anything I can do to help, I'll be gracious enough to lend my support. And that is going to be part of my intervention tomorrow. With respect to tonight, let me summarily say this. Impressively insightful, exquisitely delivered, provocative and captivating, exciting, thoughtful, and entertaining.